Today's tier list is going to be a little different. I'm going to be talking about horror movies, and I do love me some horror movies. It's the only kind of movie I actually watch or keep up on. I have not seen all of them, mostly a couple new ones and some B-movie classics, and a couple of old like Hitchcock films I haven't seen. Not that I think they're bad, it's just I just haven't had the inkling to watch them, I would say. But I have seen most big movies, and let's go ahead and talk about them all. I'll rank them from S to FFFFFFFFF to haven't seen. So let's start out at the start of this list. We'll talk about A Quiet Place. Honestly, was not that good. The directing was pretty good by John Krasinski. Emily Blunt was okay. The ending, spoilers, there's going to be spoilers as far as I know the movies. John Krasinski's whole "you have to survive" thing was weird. I felt like he could have changed the direction of his character and survived that whole scenario. I didn't think it was scary, it was a little intense. The scene where Emily Blunt had to give a baby in the water, that was just a weird scenario. I haven't seen the second one, I don't look forward to seeing the second one. And I think it was a little overrated. The sound design was really good. Obviously, it's supposed to be a quiet. The idea was okay, but I would put it at a C. I didn't think it was as good as people held it up to be. Hereditary S. Ari Aster is such a good director, and he's only had two main films. This and Midsummer. I don't know if Midsummer's on this list. I doubt it. But Midsummer is a fantastic movie as well. Hereditary. Toni Collette is amazing. It's freaky. It's creepy. The girl dying was a savage ass scene. I mean, this movie was lit. The husband getting lit was lit. I mean, this movie was just balling out. Ari Aster's a genius film director. Stephen King's It. I'll give it an A. This is highly biased. I grew up on the original. I've also read the book. I love it as a story, as a character. It haunted me through my whole childhood, and the new one, while it wasn't like an amazing film, I really enjoyed it personally. I know a lot of people who did not. And for what it was, I thought it was a fantastic film. Bill Skarsgård played a pretty good Pennywise. I didn't like the look. Bill Skarsgård was not as good as Tim Curry. Obviously, I think anyone could attest to that if they've seen both films. But one scene that really stood out when it came to Pennywise being creepy is when they're looking at the film in the garage and he takes over the garage. I thought that was just awesome effects. I believe this is It Came at Night, which I have not seen. I don't really plan on seeing. I know this one's going to be tough. I haven't seen Get Out. I think it was a little overhyped for me. I like Jordan Peele a lot, actually. I haven't seen any of his movies, but him, I mean, I liked him on Mad TV. I like Key and Peele, and I know he's a competent director because these movies were heralded very highly. This is definitely on the top of my to-watch list, but I just haven't seen it yet. I'm really saving it for a rainy day when I really want to watch something that I haven't seen. Train to Busan also gets an S. I have not seen the sequel yet, but I have seen one of the animated films in the Busan or whatever series it is for South Korea. I forget the director's name. This is the best zombie movie I've ever seen. It's got so much heart, so much adventure while on a train, as much as you can get. But I mean, the mixture of like horror, action, and heart, the relationship between the father and the daughter, the guy with his pregnant wife, that guy's a badass. I mean, what a fantastic movie. One of the few movies I've seen multiple times because it was that good. Hush. I would give this a B. Mike Flanagan's one of my favorite directors currently when it comes to movies. Well, horror movies and movies, technically, as well as Hunting Hill House. I believe this is his wife that's playing the deaf writer. It was a nice little film. I didn't think it was like that fantastic, but it was well done. An isolation film. Excuse me. Home Invasion. I like home invasions when they're done well, and this was a pretty solid film. Definitely not his best. We'll see if it even has some of his best on here, but for now, no. The Witch. I've seen parts of it. It was kind of playing in the background, and I haven't completely watched it yet. The scenes I saw, supremely enjoyed, but I don't think I've watched enough of it to give it justice in order to actually rate it. I'm sure it's an S to A, or maybe even B, but until I've seen it, I'm not gonna just say that. Creep. Man, that's tough. I would say Creep is A tier. Mark Duplass was so boring to me in The League, even though I love the show. He played the straight man, and he was not that funny, not that interesting, but he was kind of the glue guy for the whole show. But when it came to him playing the creep in this movie, man, he did such a good job. I mean, this turned me 180 on his acting. The Duplass brothers do a lot of movies, and I actually don't know if they directed it. I don't think they did. But this movie is really chilling. The final scene is really eerie. It does found footage really well, and it makes a lot of... it does a lot with like two actors, and I think that's really impressive. I was really impressed with what they were able to get out of this film. You can tell that the budget isn't that high, but that doesn't matter. That's the nice thing about found footage films, is if they're done correctly, you can do a lot with very little, and this definitely showed that. Cabin in the Woods is an S tier movie. I've seen this movie also a couple times, and I know like I'm saying that, but for me, rewatching a movie really is like, well, it takes a lot for me to rewatch a movie. Because what you have to do in order to actually watch the movie and sit all the way through them. For some reason, I can't think of the director off the top of my head's name. I know he's directed Buffy the Vampire Slayer and a bunch of Marvel films. Why can't I think of his name? Anyway, this movie's fantastic. I remember when I was first watching it, the first half is just like a callback to, standard slasher films. Teenagers go to a cabin in the woods, and I was pretty bored. But, about a third of the way through, half of the way through, it completely turns it upside its head. And it made me feel dumb because that's what it was going for, and it did trick me, and I really enjoyed that it got me like that. There was so much they could do with this movie. The characters had the ability to choose between different artifacts in the basement to summon evil demons, and they could do so much with that in the future. I wish they would. The acting was fantastic. The characters were fun. The setup was amazing. The ending was a little lackluster, but it was really cool when they broke down into the cells and you saw all the different mythical creatures. I liked the underground beds that were being held by Richard Jenkins and the other guy from Billy Madison. I can't remember his name. That was so much fun. The merman payoff when the dude was like, what's a merman look like? And then he gets eaten by it at the end was just a funny payoff. And this movie is just so much fun. It's so unique, and if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Pandorum, I have not seen this yet. It's always one of those movies where I'm like, I don't know, that looks kind of like some cheap garbage, but most of these movies kind of start out to be cheap garbage until you watch them anyway. Strangers, this movie sucks, okay? Liv Tyler, I think it's Liv Tyler. I don't even remember. I watched it not that long ago, and I was bored the entire way through. It did have Dennis Reynolds, which was really weird. But yeah, no, this movie sucked, and I don't know why people herald it as a good movie. It might be because the 2000s were really bad, and this might have been a bright spot for a lot of people, especially when they were younger and they didn't know about the older horror movies they hadn't seen. And this might have I feel like this is like the Final Fantasy VII syndrome, where you're like, If you haven't seen a good movie yet, this is like the beginning. This is the genesis of your horror movies. So it's always got a good place in your heart. I just think it's a bad movie. Trick or Treat. I know a lot of people love this movie. It's a great horror anthology. It's funny. It's not scary to me, which it doesn't really matter. I don't know. I didn't think it was as good as people said. I enjoyed it though. I'm not saying it's bad. It's good. But I think it was a little overrated. Regardless, I would highly recommend anyone who hasn't seen it to watch it. It's a fun movie. And it's a great Halloween film when you need something to watch on Halloween. So, yeah, I would put it at a B tier. Paranormal Activity, I would also put it at a B tier. Talk about a slow burning movie. If you don't like slow burns, then you are going to hate this film, and the payoff may not do it for you. I really enjoyed this film, especially on like a $10,000 budget. The marketing was fantastic. I mean, the only movie that's had as good of marketing as this is The Blair Witch Project, which was probably even better, obviously, but this was amazing. Like, 10,000, they made millions of dollars. They jump-started a 6-7 movie franchise out of this $10,000 movie just alone. Just for that alone, I have to put the A tier. I mean, it was a pretty creepy movie, and if you didn't know what to expect, it was pretty good. I mean, it was pretty intense. You didn't know what was going to happen. I know I just repeated myself, but I can't think of a certain word right now. Good movie. The Host. Bong Joon-ho, who just did Parasite. I'll put this as a B tier. So the whole movie, and I haven't seen this in a while, but these morticians dumped a bunch of formaldehyde into the Han River, which mutated this monster. And this is basically just a hardcore kaiju movie. The monster's not big, though. It's not like Godzilla big, but it just terrorizes the town. Very fun movie. I don't know if the CG holds up, but regardless, Bong Joon-ho is just an awesome director. And if you liked Snowpiercer, if you liked Parasite, then you're probably going to like this, alright? I would definitely recommend it. Dawn of the Dead. If this is the original, which I hope it is, because the sequel was absolute garbage, in my mind anyway. Yes, George A. Romero's second film in the Dead series. It takes place in a shopping mall. Very fun movie. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the setting. And I definitely think it does a lot. It does a lot for today's modern horror movies when it comes to zombies. It definitely evolved the genre more than I would say the original did. The original was taken very seriously. This one was a lot more tongue-in-cheek, and it gave you a better scenario of like, what would I do if I were in that situation? I know there's a whole allegory for because George A. Romero likes to make allegories out of what humans are actually zombies, etc. And this was the big time in which malls were famous, and people were basically zombies staring at the mall all day. So there's that. But if you're not even looking for that, just regardless, this is a fun movie and a great movie altogether. Saw is B tier. This is, to me, the best one. The second one was pretty good, and then it takes a deep dive. I think the franchise is pretty overrated, but this one was actually good. And this is also James Wan's debut in filmmaking. I know he had another director with him, but I like James Wan. He might be a little out of his element now, doing like Fast and Furious and Aquaman, which I haven't seen Aquaman, but he has Patrick Wilson in like every one of his movies. Not in this film. This did have, I forget his name, but the guy who was in The Princess Bride, he was pretty good in it. And pretty intense. I think the ending payoff was nice, finding out who the killer was, and then it kind of got pretty recycled. But the first Saw definitely holds up. Also another cheap budget. That film spawned a huge franchise. That's the nice thing about these horror movies, is a lot of them are made on a really low budget and then they just make so much money, and like Hollywood destroys the franchise not too long after, but the fact that they're able to make so much money off such a low budget is really impressive. It always is. And there's not many other franchises, or not franchises, there's not many other genres that are able to do that. Maybe rom-coms, I guess, because you don't need many effects. But yeah, it's impressive. 28 Days Later, fantastic film. I'll put it A tier. I love it. I don't think it's S tier quite. I wish there were more. 28 Weeks Later was really fun. I don't know, is there 28 months later? I don't even remember. One of the most impressive things about this movie to me, also, I mean, the shots of the open towns, the desolate towns when he wakes up at the beginning of the film, just fantastic. And I know, like, something like Alice in Borderland was able to do that, but I think that was because of the COVID-19 situation. 28 Days Later didn't get, they didn't get to take advantage of something like COVID-19 where everyone's indoors. So I think they had to pay a lot to actually get that open. I was thinking about that the other day. This movie's cool. It's really intense. I think the zombies are probably the scariest zombies because they're controlled by a virus instead of just being the undead. So they're very fast, very vicious, very brutal, and unrelenting. The movie's very nice. It's got a lot of heart. It's very, very brutal as a movie in itself. The whole military being fucked up was a nice addition too. It was a little reminiscent the military of Day of the Dead, which maybe is on this. I don't know. Fantastic film. I think it's better than the sequel, and definitely one of the best horror films out there. The Ring, I'll put The Ring at a B, and that's only because I think The Ring itself is not that great. I mean, it's great, don't get me wrong. It's no Ringu, and Ringu, the original, is a lot better, I think, personally. I love the idea of The Ring. Sadako, 7 days. What an iconic horror saying, 7 days. Everyone in their 20s plus really knows what that means, I'd say. And a lot of those Korean and Asian films during the early 2000s were being adapted into America, and that's where a lot of the big films did come for us in that time, which is a shame because it's nothing original. And the 2000 Asian horrors were some of the best. I mean, when you think of 2000 horror, you think South Korea, you think Japan, you think like Taiwanese, and then in America it's really lackluster to the point where we had to steal their ideas just to make money. Now, The Ring was a pretty good adaptation. My favorite scene is when Sadako is crawling out of the TV. That scared the fuck out of me as a kid, and I love that scene. Otherwise, I think the movie's pretty bad. But I know a lot of people do enjoy it. They probably haven't seen Ringu, and I don't blame them. It's hard to watch a foreign film if you haven't before, and especially if you're not like a horror buff and you're not really looking for that. Final Destination, it's hard to rate this like too high, but it's also hard to rate it too low because it's such a fun movie. I'm gonna put it as B. I think it's much better than these films. Final Destination is so much fun. It's got a lot of rewatchability. It's got Devon Sawa. I believe that's Ali Larder. Maybe she's in the second one, but Devon Sawa, he hasn't been around too much lately. I know he was in the new weird John Travolta movie. That was interesting. But he's a cool actor. This movie was really fun. I love the idea of Final Destination. It's so original. The deaths are fun. The characters are pretty interesting. And okay, maybe I was a little wrong about the 2000s for America. The early 2000s, early and late 90s, we had like The Faculty, we had Final Destination, we had a few of these teen horrors that were really, really good, and this is probably the best one. This and The Faculty. I don't know if The Faculty's on here. Scream as well, but Scream's different because that was done by a coveted director. Final Destination, great film. The whole franchise is actually watchable. That's the difference between Final Destination and some of these other ones, like Paranormal Activity It's not that good. Saw is not that good. But the whole Final Destination franchise is actually fun because of the idea itself. Blair Witch Project, I'll put as a B. It could be higher. I really enjoyed the film. I also haven't seen it since its release. I was also very young when I saw it, and the ending freaked the fuck out of me. Another very slow burn, like Paranormal Activity. They do have a lot in common. Great marketing campaigns. I mean, the Blair Witch Project had the best marketing campaign I've ever seen, probably will ever see for a film, regardless of its genre. People really thought that the actors were dead or missing, and they put so much work into it, and you have to give so much respect for that. And maybe because I give to Paranormal Activity, I'll have to do this, and that means Dawn of the Dead. Obviously, I think it's probably not better than it for me, but it's better than all this. Yeah, what a cool idea. The sequel, I never saw the sequel. I did watch the newest one from a few years ago, Blair Witch, and that was just a terrible, shitty, fucking waste of money. And it's unfortunate that they had to Hollywoodize, I don't know, this franchise and just turn it on its head. There was a game that came out, which I did start playing, which was actually cool and pretty scary, so I'll give it that, but that didn't need a whole movie resurrection. This movie, though, if you haven't seen it, watch it. Event Horizon, another one on my list that I haven't seen. So many people have told me to watch it, but the sci-fi horror is tough for me. I'm not into sci-fi that much anyway, and horror, I don't know. I'll watch it, though. Ooh, okay. Next on the list is one of my favorites. It's not scary at all, at least to me. And I didn't like it as a kid, but the older I got, I really do like this movie. I really like number 4 as well, which was the latest one. And Wes Craven, I love Wes Craven's films. I haven't seen all of them. I've seen all the Freddy movies. But Scream 1 is such a special film. It basically parodies horror, or at least the slasher genre, perfectly. Neve Campbell's a babe. I love Matthew Lillard in this movie as Stu. And I love Jamie Foxx as... Jamie Foxx? No. Jamie something. I can't think of his name. Malibu's Most Wanted, whatever his name is. He was such a fantastic character who was basically the straight man that told everyone what was going to happen. It was just such a well-done movie, such a great parody of the time, and I think it holds up perfectly today. And I think all the sequels have actually been really watchable as well. It's a good franchise on top of just being a good movie. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. And if you haven't seen it, I would recommend going into it with an open mind and don't expect it to be scary. Killer Clowns is one of the classics I have not seen. It looks so cheesy, and I don't think I'm ready for it yet. I know a lot of people who have, and if I had seen it at a younger age, that's about the time I would have wanted to watch it. Maybe I'll watch it at some point if I want to get drunk or high and watch it, but I just don't see myself watching this anytime soon. Evil Dead is S tier. Evil Dead 2. Evil Dead 1 I think would be A tier. I love the effects of Evil Dead 1. I don't think it's on this list, so I'll just talk about it briefly. Evil Dead 1, the effects are fantastic. It's taken a lot more seriously than Evil Dead 2. Evil Dead 2 is a comedy with horror elements, and Evil Dead 2 is basically a remake of Evil Dead 1. Now let's talk about Evil Dead 2. Evil Dead 2, Bruce Campbell had a lot more time to mature into the role. Ash became a much more likable character with a much bigger personality. The effects were a lot better in this movie, and I love Sam Raimi's use of the camera. I mean, he's so good with it. The Deadites are really fun and really interesting, and Ash chopping off his arm or his hand to put on a saw or a chainsaw. I mean, there's so much to talk about with this movie. It's definitely S tier. If you're a horror fan, I couldn't understand if you would say anything different. It's the top of this list so far. And if you haven't seen it, this is definitely the most recommended movie to watch, because if you don't want to get scared, you probably won't. So don't watch it to be scared, but if you're looking for a laugh, you'll probably get a couple. I think you'll just be more interested in how the film's made and how the film moves along. And it's a really enjoyable movie. This is definitely the longest tier list. I'm gonna try to speed it up a little bit, but it looks like we still have quite a bit to go through. I have not seen all of these films, so that's actually pretty nice. The Fly I have not seen. David Cronenberg's movies, I don't think I've seen very many, and I know that's a shame. I know this movie's a classic, but it's never really interested me. I feel like it's been like spoiled a little too much for me to really enjoy it, but I think if I did watch it, I'd watch it for the practical effects more than anything, because that seems to be what this movie really has to offer, at least in my mind. Nightmare on Elm Street, one of my favorite horror movies, definitely my favorite Freddy film. The only one that takes itself seriously, which is a little unfortunate, because when Freddy is taken seriously, at least with Robert Englund playing him, and he's still got the tongue-in-cheek, but he's really menacing in it, it's a little better. Dream Warriors is almost as good, and that one was able to actually use the fantastical elements to its advantage. I would say the franchise as a whole is pretty bad. I've seen them all. I enjoy most of them, but it's unfortunate because it was kind of pushed into the ground. The original and the third one, though, two amazing movies. This is one of the best horror movies ever, especially, Robert Englund's role. Jennifer Langenkamp, I believe that's her name. She's a fantastic final girl, probably my favorite. And this movie is just fantastic. It's freaky. It's got John Saxon, who's a legend, and just one of the best. This put Freddy on the map, and Freddy's the most iconic slasher next to Jason and Michael Myers, so what can you do? Man, another one I feel really bad about. I have not actually sat down and watched the whole thing of the thing. I've seen parts of it over my lifetime, but I've never sat down and watched from beginning to end. And I feel like that's a shame. Out of all these movies, this and Get Out, I mean, The Witch, I know I'm definitely gonna watch, but I don't know why I haven't watched it. I know the story, I know the characters, I know a lot about it, but I've just never actually watched it, so I don't feel like I have the right to list it and to rank it, so I will not. And hate me for it, I don't care. Poltergeist. Good movie. I think it's a little overrated, honestly. I do like Steven Spielberg trying to do some horror, and he did nail it, honestly. It's good. They're here. Indian burial ground stuff. I like the scene where everything's flying around in the room. I thought that those effects were actually really cool. One of my favorite things about these classic films is the practical effects, seeing as you can't really have a modern film without it being completely CG'd. But practical effects are amazing, and they were really good in this movie, and you can attribute that to Steven Spielberg and his fantastic filmmaking. But yeah, I would say it's a B. I think it's a little overrated, not too much, but there are just so many better horror movies. What can you do? Videodrome, another one I have not seen. Looks really cool. The effects on it actually look really cool. I've seen a lot about it, but I just have not seen it. The Evil Dead. I would put The Evil Dead on a B tier. I don't think it's as good as The Evil Dead 2. It did start up the franchise, and it's a fantastic film nonetheless. But Evil Dead 2 basically took everything Evil Dead 1 did and just made it better. it was just a lot less scary. Evil Dead 1, you could actually look and be like, wow, that's a little frightening. So, The Shining, I don't think it's S tier. I know if you look at the top 5 list, it's always Exorcist, The Shining, Alien, and maybe a Hitchcock film or two, like Psycho. I like The Shining a lot, Stanley Kubrick. I haven't read the book, so I don't know what he's changed. And I did like Doctor Sleep, which was the direct sequel to this film. The Shining's really good. Jack Nicholson's a beast. And it's weird. It's a weird movie. Like, even for a horror movie, it's pretty weird. It's trippy. The ending where you see Jack in the film or in the picture for the hotel is also a very eerie ending. And I really like the movie. I really do. Alien? Alien is also A tier. Personally, I don't know. I'm not as big on it as most people are, so I'm gonna put Alien A tier. Probably gonna put The Shining back a little bit. This is where my bias starts really showing. It's still better than Creep. It's probably better than all these films, but I'm just not the biggest fan. Again, like I said, sci-fi horror doesn't really entice me. Aliens don't really entice me. I know the alien does look really cool, and I like Sigourney Weaver, don't get me wrong, but just not really my thing. Halloween, I mean, it's really good. John Carpenter's awesome, and his score is really iconic. The best part about this film to me is the opening scene and how it was all one shot, where Michael Myers had killed his sister or whatever in the POV. Learning how that was done was actually really interesting, and I thought it was a really good opening scene. The movie overall, I'm not a big fan of the Halloween franchise. I'm not a big fan of Michael Myers as a character. I don't think he's that scary. Maybe he's the most real to life, but even then it's like, he's really not. He survives way too much, and it's like, the fact that he does really just, I don't know, turns me off from the character, because it's like, what is he? I don't get it. I don't get it anymore. Whatever. Anyway, people probably won't agree with me. Oh, here we go. Here's the Dawn of the Dead I was talking about. Now this, this has, wow, this is the Zack Snyder film. Why are both of them on here? People must really like this film for some reason. I think this is the same Stranger Syndrome where it was like the only movie they saw in the mid-2000s, so they thought it was like the best thing ever. And it just stuck with them. And maybe that's how the original It is for me. So I can't really hate, but man, Zombie Baby, come on, this movie was garbage. House I haven't seen. Is this the only Asian film? It's been the only Asian film so far. This is supposed to be a really trippy, cool movie from the 80s, I believe, the 80s. I just haven't seen it. It's on my list. It looks really cool. I'll probably watch that. This one I also feel really bad for never seeing. Dario Argento's Suspiria, and they also did remake it, which, I don't know, I just have not seen it yet. I know it's supposed to be really cool with its vibrant colors and its trippy ambience. It's definitely on my list. I just have not seen it. Carrie? It's a good movie. I don't really like the Bible bumping preaching stuff. I love Stephen King. I've read most of his, well, not most, I've read probably like half of his books, so I've read a lot, but never read Carrie. Cool movie. I've seen it a couple times, but just not for me. Sorry. Jaws. I don't know. I don't really like Jaws. I don't like a killer shark. I never go into water. I've never been to a beach or a lake or an ocean and like swam in it. So I don't. Not even a lake. That makes no sense. I've never been to an ocean, big body of water like that and like swam in it. Ever had to deal with sharks. It's never scared me. I like the acting I like the characters. That's why it's a C tier, and Steven Spielberg's a great director. But I mean, what can you say? It's not. Yeah, sorry. The birds. I mean, it's also, I don't know. The animal horror really does not get me. Yeah. Alfred Hitchcock's a beast. Maybe I'll need to rewatch this, but I guess I have a different idea of what horror movies I like. Psycho. Um, it's A tier. I think it's a really weird movie. I think it's pretty good. I don't know if. No, it's not A tier for me. I'm sorry. It's B tier. I don't really like it that much. I What I respect most about it is that it did jumpstart the slasher genre, along with like Black Christmas. This came before it though, so it really did. And there were a couple other films I can't think of off the top of my head that did help jumpstart the slasher genre, but this is really the biggest one. Let's be honest. I don't know, just not for me, guys. Uh, Even the remake. I mean, the remake was shot for shot. I know people hate it. It's probably because I'm not a boomer, or maybe I don't know enough about cinematography. I mean, I'm sure it's fantastic if I rewatched it, which I haven't seen in years, but there are a lot of these I haven't seen in years that I think hold up a little better. The Babadook, very fun movie. I liked the acting a lot. I really liked the mom. A lot of people were really, really annoyed with the child actor, but I kind of thought that was the point, so I didn't really understand their gripes. The Babadook character was really cool. Really fun, interesting film, and one of the, I think it's like Australian and New Zealand film. And it's one of the only that's probably going to be on this list, and that alone is really impressive too. What a cool film. The Exorcist. I don't know. I've rewatched it recently. I really like the special effects makeup. I know it's a good movie. I think a lot of people, when they think they need an excellent horror movie, they need it to be something that has a great cinematography but also a horror element. And for me, while that's great, I don't think that's what makes the best horror films. The Exorcist is creepy. It's fun. It's brutal in this, all the vomit and all the swearing, but I also think it's a product of its time. And I don't look for a horror film to be a cinematic masterpiece, which I think, some things like The Shining and The Exorcist really are. So I can understand if that's what people are looking for, but it's just not what I'm looking for. The Conjuring. I liked this a lot more when it came out. I really like James Wan as a horror film director, but, as time goes on, you're just like, well, this is like, and I'm not using the right word, Hollywoodized idea of a horror film. I really like Patrick Wilson and I like Vera Farmiga a lot. That's probably what saves this film. I don't think the jump scares were overdone, and I thought the directing, it's just like, to me, it's like the most solid film it's like the gateway of solid films to get someone into horror. And that's what I really respect about it more than anything. I don't think it's like the best movie. I don't think it's that scary, but it's very well done. It's no masterpiece, but it's just super solid. Rosemary's Baby I have not seen. I just have not seen it. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is so good, and I didn't see it for the first time until recently, recently, like a few years ago. And Tobe Hooper is awesome with his long shots. the scene where Leatherface just comes out and clocks the dude with the hammer is freaky as fuck, and this holds up with the grain style film. Um, and it's just a really, really fun movie, and it's probably the best classic cinema horror film that still holds up in my mind. And it's genuinely freaky, and Leatherface is really good in it. And it's a shame to me that the second film was such a departure from the first, because I think if Toby had taken it a little more seriously, which, I don't blame him for wanting to go in a different direction, I think we could have had a good duo. But, Night of the Living Dead, it's fun. I love the history behind it. I think it was like all the original tapes were destroyed, so it became public domain like almost immediately, and that's why when, at least, I'm like in my late 20s, early 30s, so when I was a kid, we would be able to get these anywhere because anyone could sell Night of the Living Dead on VHS. So we would have like a combo Night of the Living Dead, Night of the Living Bread, and it's just so interesting that happened. I think it really put into perspective for me like how copyright worked, and I think it actually helped out George A. Romero, the fact that it was public domain, because at the time horror movies were lauded as being, not safe for kids, so a lot of people couldn't see them. Of course, there were B creature features that you could see, but I think this one was really opened the door and definitely started a really cool franchise. It's not the best one of the three, at least the original three in my mind, but it's a really fun film. They're coming to get you, Barbara. Nosferatu, I haven't seen. I know it's Max Schreck. I know it's a cool movie. I just have not seen. Sorry. Army of Darkness. The thing about my S ranks is they're not all scary movies. Like, A Nightmare on Elm Street and Hereditary are the only ones that are actually like kind of freaky. But Army of Darkness, Train to Busan, Evil Dead 2, Cabin in the Woods are all kind of tongue-in-cheek, and they're mixed genres. Army of Darkness is just such a fun, iconic movie. Obviously, it's super biased for me. I've seen it several times. I love Ash. I still haven't seen Ash vs. the Evil Dead or whatever show, but it doesn't matter. This movie is so much fun, and it's definitely a rewatchable film for me. That's why it's up there. Friday the 13th Part 1. Not good. Sorry, it's not. I like all the sequels, but the first one just does not do it for me. Obviously, it kickstarted the franchise. I'm gonna move these down too. Eyes Without a Face, I have not seen. It looks really cool though. Frankenstein, I have not seen. I haven't seen any of the Universal classics from the 40s and 50s, so what can I do? Child's Play scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. I think it's a little overrated at this point. The remake was actually pretty fun. I was pleasantly surprised. I don't know, maybe Child's Play is a solid B. And this is probably the best one of the franchise as well, so it's not going to get any better from here. Chucky's an iconic character. He was really fun. I really like the effects in the first film, but it is what it is. Brain Dead was a really slow burn, honestly. Peter Jackson is a great director and all, but I just thought this film was a little slow burn. It was pretty gory. Oh, this is another New Zealand film, right? Because Peter Jackson's from that area, or yeah, so that's pretty cool. So we got two in here. I don't know, it's not that good. What is this? I don't know what that is, so I'll come back to that. The Vanishing, don't know what that is either. Silent Hill, I thought this movie was completely garbage. Um, Most video game to film adaptations are. I can't believe some people like this film. I just thought it was terrible. I've never played the games, unfortunately. I don't know why I haven't. I'm not a big fan of horror games for some reason, but this movie is awful. Hostel, just terrible. The Strangers They Come at Night, I don't think I saw that. Yeah, I didn't see that, because why would I after I saw the original? Friday the 13th Part 2, here we go. I really, really do enjoy this film. This is Potato Head Sack Jason, our first introduction to the character. I love the scene where the guy in the wheelchair gets macheted in the face in the rain and then he rolls down the stairs. Very, very fun movie. I think this really kickstarted the franchise. I know the first one got people interested, but the introduction of Jason is obviously what got people coming back. So you gotta credit this movie just as much as the first one, and I think it was just a better film overall. Ringu, A tier. Yes. This is a slow burn, and it's kind of a darker film, and like the way the film itself, it is just kind of darker. And it's very low budget. Like when you compare this to the actual Ring, it's a very low budget, and I think that gives it a charm as well as a creepiness that the first Ring just, again, it was Hollywoodized. The budget was way too high for something like that, and it just looked way too clean. And I think a lot of these films are much better when they do look a little dirty and grimy. So, and this is just scarier, in my opinion. Creepshow. Oh, I didn't expect this to be on the list. That's a pleasant surprise. Creepshow is fun, man. Stephen King anthology film. I don't think he directed every one of them. I know he did direct a couple. And wow, just it's a fun anthology film. I honestly don't know if it's better than Trick or Treat. I honestly don't know. Probably is for me. I like Creepshow. I like Creepshow 2 a little better personally too. Jeepers Creepers. Yeah, Jeepers Creepers. I really like the Creeper. This movie was really fun. I thought Justin Long actually did a really good job. It's really the only reason I'm a Justin Long fan. And I really liked, because I saw this when I was really young, I really liked when they doubled back and they saw the guy dumping the bodies. That was a well done scene. And then the chase, which I know is basically stolen from a film from the 70s by Steven Spielberg, I believe. I forget the name of it. Duel. But regardless, this movie was fun. It had a unique creature. The only problem I have with this movie, honestly, is the director is a fucking piece of shit. And I can't believe they let him make the third film, which, by the way, was completely garbage. I probably shouldn't have seen it, but I was intrigued because I did enjoy the second one as well. But yeah, I don't know. It's just got a strange history with it. I don't think it will ever live down, honestly. Cannibal Holocaust. I haven't seen this for good reason, I'd like to say. This is the one, I mean, I'd probably see it before I saw The Strangers, honestly, but yeah, there's a reason I haven't seen this. It doesn't look that good. I think it's interesting, the history behind it, but it just doesn't look like a fun movie, I'm sorry. Creature from the Black Lagoon again. You know, maybe I did see this when I was a kid. I know I used to have it on VHS. I don't know. If I saw any of the Universal horrors, I'd probably go back and watch, like, Dracula. Maybe. Just not for me. I mean, I know the actors, like, I think Lon Chaney. Maybe, I don't know. I learned a lot about it from Cinemassacre from James Rolfe, because he is a huge film. He's got enough fandom in him for the both of us, I'd like to say. So, Children of the Corn. I love the idea. It freaked me out as a kid, even though as a kid it shouldn't have, because I'd probably just be a child of the corn anyway. I'd be fine. And I also live in a corn town, so it did freak me out a little. The idea is really interesting, but this movie does not hold up. The only good scene for me is the beginning, when they lock up the coffee shop and they kill all the adults. And then the movie really takes a hard dive. The sequels all suck. It turned into a terrible franchise, and the further down it goes, they become some of the worst films, like the 7th, the 8th. I mean, they become really bad. But the first one is interesting enough so it can get a C. The best thing to come out of this movie is that I did learn what coagulate meant. So that's cool. Hills Have Eyes. I actually saw this recently. I think it was on Joe Bob Briggs. I had not seen it prior, and the actor on this is a really cool dude. Forget his name. Regardless, I don't think it was that good of a movie. I think this was also Wes Craven. And he's a good director. I don't know. I don't really like the backwoods hillbilly stuff. Texas Chainsaw Massacre did it perfectly though, so that's what differentiates it. It's an okay movie. Phantom Carriage, I've never even heard of. Wow. Cool. Zombie, I think that was Lucio Fulci. I have not seen that. It's Italian. The Blob. This looks like the remake. Which, I don't know. I haven't seen it in so long that I cannot say. The Last House on the Left. This is also Wes Craven. There's a lot of Wes Craven on here. I mean, I guess for good purpose. The Last House on the Left is actually pretty good. This is, like, out of all these old movies, this is probably the most brutal. I mean, dude gets his dick bitten off. So, yeah, this movie was pretty epic. I would say it's like the most, it's like exploitation torture film before like Hostel and stuff. I don't know, man. Not really my cup of tea, but if it is, this movie it's pretty shocking, to be honest, for like, and that's surprising from one of these older films. So that alone makes it pretty cool. Shivers, I've also never heard of this. And Faust, I have not seen. Troll 2, I have not seen. I probably will never see it. I don't know why it's on this list. Yeah, it's notoriously bad. But okay. Dead Silence. Honestly, pretty good movie. I was pleasantly surprised. Yeah. I always, like, it reminds me of, like, Slappy from Goosebumps, you know, the mannequin. And this also starred Jason, which was Suki's brother from True Blood. This is the only movie I've ever actually seen him in. This is James Wan's second or third directed movie. I'm not too sure. It's okay, though. Not bad. I think it's a little overlooked, but I also don't think that's for that bad of a reason. Very mediocre, but also a fun movie and pretty unique to some regards. Arachnophobia. I have not seen this. I know the stars Jeff Daniels. I've seen parts of it because I can think of certain scenes, and out of all out of all horror films dealing with, like, you know, animals, this would probably be the scariest one for me. I don't mind spiders, but like a big spider or spiders coming at you, fuck that. Ju-on. I'll put it up here with Ringu. Not enough Asian cinema for my liking, personally. I'd expected a little bit more, Maybe like Pulse. Uh, I can't think of any off the top of my head for some reason. I'm blanking. Ju-on's really cool. It's like it's a lot different from the one made, which was The Grudge. So this is the original The Grudge, and I'm pretty sure this is an anthology story if I can recall correctly. It's like 4 different stories, and it's all about the house it's taking place in. Which they did do the show on Netflix, Ju-on Origins, which was actually awesome. If you haven't seen Ju-on Origins, go check that out if you're a fan of the Ju-on series. I never saw The Grudge. Americanized version with Sarah Michelle Gellar just did not interest me at all. It's one of the few films I do own on DVD, and I highly recommend it. Very fun. Cujo, I don't know. I read the book too. I just don't really care for it, honestly. Like a rabid dog. Last House on the this is the Amityville Horror. Not that good. I'm sorry. Pretty forgettable. The second one, The Possession, that one was stuck with me a little bit more, and that's not on this list, so I don't know. I didn't think it was that good. I haven't seen This Fly. I haven't seen My Bloody Valentine either, and I haven't seen the original House of Wax. Alright, so there's a lot I haven't seen. There's a lot I probably will end up seeing soon. Yeah, I think it's a pretty solid list. I was looking for a tier list with enough horror films. Like, there were some with way too many. I thought this was a very solid list. It didn't have some of my favorites aren't on here, but overall I think it's a solid list. Let me know what you think, what's missing, where you would rate certain things, or even out of these, which ones I missed. Tell me what I need to watch, because I always love looking for horror films. I know I'm definitely going to watch Suspiria and The Witch and Get Out, but beyond that, I haven't seen or heard of Shivers. I haven't seen Zombie, So let me know. Thanks for watching.